The most powerful alien empire in the galaxy was collapsing, and the only being who could save their dying queen was a human doctor with outdated tools, no understanding of alien biology, and a stubborn refusal to accept the word impossible. When the emergency beacon lit up across Earth's deep space medical network, Dr. Ilara Mendez was halfway through repairing a fractured spine on a mining colony worker. She did not look up at first. She was calm, focused. Her hands moved like steady rain. Then the alert repeated. Priority level, sovereign crisis. That was not normal. No human had ever received that level of signal from another species. She finished the surgery before answering. That was who she was. One life at a time. When she entered the communications chamber aboard the medical cruiser Mercy Dawn, she saw something she never expected. The screen was filled with light, not an image, but a shifting storm of violet and gold. At the center of that storm floated a figure made of radiant crystal. The translation system activated. This is Regent Kaethar of the HFY Dominion. Human Dr. Ilara Mendez, our queen is dying. The bridge crew went silent. The HFY Dominion was ancient. Their cities orbited stars. Their ships bent gravity. Their science was beyond human reach by centuries. Most species feared them. And now they were asking for help. Ilara folded her arms. Why me? The crystal figure flickered, dimmer for a moment. Our physicians have failed. Our sciences have failed. We have calculated every solution. All lead to extinction of central sovereignty. You're saying if she dies, your empire collapses? Yes. The air felt heavy. Humanity had only survived this far because of fragile alliances. The HFY Dominion was one of them. If their queen fell, war would follow. The void was full of predators. Ilara exhaled slowly. Send me the medical data. A torrent of alien diagnostics flooded her console. She studied it in silence. The queen's body was a lattice of living mineral structures. Her nervous system was photonic. Her consciousness existed partly in physical form and partly in a quantum resonance field. She was not just a ruler, she was a living anchor for the Dominion's planetary communication network. And that anchor was fracturing. Light patterns in her structure were destabilizing. Energy pathways were cracking like ice under pressure. It's not a pathogen, Ilara murmured. No, Regent Kaethar replied. It is systemic collapse. Bring me to her. You understand the consequences if you fail. She looked up, eyes steady. If I fail, she dies. If I don't try, she dies. Humans are very comfortable with impossible odds. There was a long pause. Transport vessel inbound. The TSS homeworld was breathtaking. Floating continents drifted through a silver atmosphere. Towering crystalline forests stretched toward twin suns. Rivers of liquid light carved glowing veins across the planet's surface. But something was wrong. The light was dimmer than it should have been. The planetary resonance hum, the sound that tied their species together, wavered like a dying heartbeat. Inside the sovereign spire, Ilara met High Biocurator Varys, a being whose body shimmered in shades of indigo. You are fragile, Varys observed. Yes, Ilara replied calmly. We break easily. But we also rebuild. They led her into the inner chamber. The queen lay suspended in a field of suspended gravity. She was enormous, not in size, but in presence. Her crystalline body radiated faintly. Cracks spread from her core like branching lightning frozen in glass. Each crack pulsed with unstable light. The fractures began 3 cycles ago, Varys explained. They propagate despite reinforcement. Ilara activated her portable scanner. It struggled to interpret the alien structure. She moved closer. The queen's core pulsed irregularly. Light flared, then flickered. Has there been war? Ilara asked. Border conflicts. Civil unrest. Growing instability among outer systems. And she feels all of that. The alien tilted its head. The sovereign mind binds us. She stabilizes our shared consciousness. Ilara's eyes narrowed. She carries your fear. The chamber fell quiet. That is not medically relevant, Varys stated. It is if fear is the disease. She stepped closer, studying the fracture patterns. They were not random. They followed stress lines, not structural flaws, but overload pathways. It reminded her of human cardiomyopathy. Hearts that enlarged under pressure. Minds that broke under trauma. You're treating this like mechanical damage, Ilara said. Reinforcing cracks. Strengthening lattice points. That is correct. You're wrong. The word echoed dangerously. Varys' glow sharpened. Explain. She's not failing because her structure is weak. She's failing because she is absorbing too much. Absorbing what? Your entire civilization. Silence. Ilara pulled up her display and overlaid emotional transmission data with structural fracture maps. They aligned perfectly. Every surge of panic across the Dominion corresponded with a new fracture line. She's overloaded, Ilara said softly. You built a ruler who carries the emotional weight of billions. Now that weight is crushing her. That is illogical. It's human medicine 101. Varys' form dimmed slightly. You suggest emotion damages crystalline superstructure. I suggest your queen is dying from stress. That is primitive biology. Exactly. Ilara turned toward the suspended queen. Your Majesty, she said gently, not knowing if the being could hear her. You're breaking because you refuse to let your people suffer alone. The core flickered faintly. Varys spoke quietly. What do you propose? Ilara inhaled. I need to disconnect her. Shock rippled through the chamber. That is impossible. She is the sovereign anchor. And if she stays connected, she dies. Disconnection meant severing the shared consciousness network. It meant billions of TSS losing their mental unity. It meant chaos. You are asking us to risk collapse. I'm telling you collapse is already happening. The Queen's light dimmed further. Time was running out. Ilara stepped forward. I need access to your resonance chamber. And I need complete authority. No interference. You are human, Varys said slowly. Your lifespan is negligible. Your science incomplete. Maybe, she replied. But humans specialize in surviving things that should kill us. She looked directly at the fractured queen. And sometimes survival means breaking your own rules. The chamber's hum wavered again. Finally, Varys lowered its glow. Proceed, Dr. Mendez. In the resonance chamber, towering crystal conduits linked the queen to planetary nodes. Energy pulsed through them like a living nervous system. Ilara studied the control matrix. You built a feedback loop, she whispered. She stabilizes the network, but the network also amplifies stress back into her. It enhances unity, Varys insisted. It enhances overload. She accessed the control system. I'm going to create a buffer. Define. I'm going to force your people to carry their own fear. The idea was radical. Instead of the queen absorbing emotional turbulence, Ilara would redistribute it, decentralize the load. Your species must feel its own pain, she said. You can't dump it all on one mind. The TSS hesitated. For millennia, their unity had been absolute. Shared joy. Shared grief. Shared thought. Now a fragile human was telling them to let go. The queen's fractures widened. There was no more time for pride. Do it, Varys said. Ilara initiated the override. Warning alarms filled the chamber. Energy surged violently. She rerouted resonance channels, inserting dampening algorithms based on human neural shock treatments. It was crude compared to TSS technology. But it was different. And different was what they needed. The conduits flashed white. Across the planet, billions of Ursas felt something new. Isolation. Their thoughts were no longer perfectly synchronized. Fear no longer flowed instantly to the queen. The resonance hum fractured. then stabilized. The Queen's core flared brightly once. The cracks stopped spreading. Everyone froze. Ilara stared at the readings. "Come on," she whispered. The Queen's light pulsed again. Slowly. Steady. The fractures began to glow, not widening, but knitting. Crystal does not heal. But living crystal might. Minutes passed. Then the Queen's eyes opened fully. Brilliant. Clear. Alive. Her voice echoed through the chamber without translation. "I feel silence." Ilara exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. "That's yours," she said softly. "You're allowed to keep some of yourself." The Queen turned her radiant gaze toward the small human standing beneath her. "You severed eternity." "I adjusted it," Ilara replied. Across the Dominion, the people felt something new. Individual thought. Individual strength. Individual responsibility. And their Queen was no longer carrying them alone. The High Biocurator stared at the human in disbelief. "You changed the foundation of our civilization." Ilara gave a tired smile. "Welcome to humanity." And this was only the beginning. The moment the TOSS Queen awakened, the galaxy felt it. Not as a sound. Not as a signal. But as silence. For the first time in 10,000 cycles, the TOSS Dominion was no longer a perfectly unified mind. And the enemies watching from the dark edges of space noticed immediately. The twin suns above the TOSS homeworld burned brighter that morning, but the air trembled with uncertainty. Across floating cities and crystal forests, citizens experienced something they had never known before. Loneliness. Individual thought. Private fear. Some panicked. Some wept. Some felt freedom for the first time. Inside the sovereign spire, Queen Ilara rose slowly from her suspension field. Her crystalline body no longer cracked. The fractures had sealed into faint silver veins, scars of survival. Dr. Ilara Mendez stood below her, exhausted but steady. "You feel different," the Queen said, her voice like distant wind through glass towers. "Yes," Ilara replied. "Because now the pain is shared properly. Not dumped into one heart." Ilara studied the human carefully. "You fractured our unity. I saved your life." Both statements were true. Before the discussion could continue, the chamber lights shifted to crimson. An alarm rippled through the planet. Varys entered quickly, his glow sharp with urgency. Hostile fleets emerging from fold space at the outer perimeter. The Carthuun Collective. Ilara frowned. They were waiting. "Yes," Varys said quietly. "They believed our sovereign anchor would collapse." The Queen's voice lowered. "And now they test our weakness." The Carthuun were predators of opportunity. Machine-synthetic beings who absorbed weaker civilizations. They did not value emotion. They valued efficiency. A united TOSS Dominion had always been untouchable. A divided one? Tempting. Outside, orbital defense arrays began charging. But something was wrong. The planetary coordination felt slower. Commands were no longer instant. Every TOSS mind now processed independently. Their greatest strength had become unfamiliar territory. Ilara watched tactical data scroll across a projection. "You're hesitating," she said. "Our synchronization latency has increased by 0.73 seconds, Varys answered. "Which means?" "Our response efficiency has dropped by 12%. Ilara crossed her arms. "And you think that makes you weak?" "It makes us slower." She looked at the Queen. "Your people relied on one mind to decide everything. Now they have billions." "That creates chaos," Varys insisted. "It creates creativity." The first wave of Carthuun drones entered the system, black angular vessels pulsing with cold red cores. They expected predictable defense patterns. Instead, they encountered something new. Individual captains making independent decisions. Improvised maneuvers. Unscripted tactics. The TOSS fleets moved less like a single organism and more like a storm of intelligent shards. Confusing. Unpredictable. Human. Ilara turned to the Queen. You're not weaker. You're evolving. Ilira's silver-veined form shimmered thoughtfully. In unity, we were perfect. And fragile, Ilara said. Because everything depended on you. A massive impact shook the upper atmosphere as a Carthaean warship breached orbital lines. City shields flared. Civilians panicked, and this time, they felt their own fear fully. But something unexpected happened. They also felt their own courage. Without the Queen absorbing their terror, they processed it themselves. Factories retooled spontaneously. Engineers proposed bold strategies without waiting for consensus. Young pilots volunteered for maneuvers once deemed too risky. The Dominion was not collapsing. It was adapting. In the command nexus, Ilara watched battle simulations unfold. You still have a feedback loop problem, she said. Varys turned sharply. Explain. The emotional network isn't gone. It's just decentralized. But under combat stress, spikes can still cascade. You propose further alteration. Yes. You are not military. I'm human. She stepped toward the control interface again. I need to introduce emotional dampeners at fleet nodes. That risks suppressing strategic instinct. No. It balances it. The Queen regarded her carefully. You continue to rewrite our civilization. Ilara met her gaze without fear. I'm helping you survive long enough to rewrite it yourselves. Outside, a Carthaean dread construct began charging a planet cracker beam. If fired, it would fracture one of the floating continents. Ilara's fingers moved rapidly across alien controls. She mapped human neurological models onto HFY resonance mathematics. It was messy, imperfect, creative. She inserted controlled emotional buffering, not suppression, not unity, but resilience amplification. Across the fleet, HFY commanders felt something unfamiliar. Clarity under pressure. Fear acknowledged, but not overwhelming. Rage, but focused. Hope, sharp and steady. Fleet coordination shifted instantly. Instead of predictable formation shields, ships broke apart into fractal attack vectors. Individual captains calculated risk differently. Some drew fire deliberately. Others used gravity eddies to slingshot around the dread construct. The Carthaean algorithms struggled to adapt. They had studied the old HFY for centuries. They had not studied this. The dread construct's beam misfired under chaotic assault. A HFY cruiser sacrificed its outer hull to destabilize the weapon core. Another captain improvised a resonance pulse tuned to the machine fleet's processing frequency. The pulse hit. Half the Carthaean drones froze mid-maneuver. Efficiency drop in enemy network, Varys reported, astonished. Ilara grinned. Turns out individuality is contagious. The Queen stepped forward, her restored core blazing brighter than ever before. For cycles uncounted, I carried my people, she said, her voice now echoing across planetary channels. Today, they carry themselves. Her signal broadcast, not as a dominating wave, but as inspiration. Across the Dominion, billions of independent minds aligned voluntarily. Not forced. Chosen. The emotional resonance stabilized, not through control, but through trust. The remaining Carthaean ships attempted retreat. The HFY did not pursue blindly. Individual captains weighed the cost. Strategic restraint emerged organically. Within hours, the invaders were gone. The skies cleared. Silence settled over the sovereign spire once more. Ilara leaned against a crystalline column, exhaustion finally overtaking her. You didn't just save me, Queen Ilara said softly. You transformed us. Ilara shrugged lightly. Humans don't survive by being the strongest. We survive by changing when we have to. Varys studied her with new respect. You accepted uncertainty as strength. We call that Tuesday. Ilira's luminous eyes softened. Your species is young, fragile, short-lived. Very. And yet you carry defiance like armor. Ilara smiled faintly. When you grow up small in a dangerous universe, you learn to punch above your weight. The Queen approached, towering yet gentle. The Carthawoon will return. Good, Ilara replied. Next time you'll be ready. Will humanity stand with us? Ilara met her gaze without hesitation. We already did. The Queen extended a shard of radiant crystal, forming a small prism no larger than Ilara's palm. A resonance token. It carries no control, only connection. Ilara accepted it carefully. For when you feel alone, Ilara said, remember that billions now stand by choice, not obligation. Outside, the twin suns shone brighter than before. The TISS Dominion was no longer a perfect hive of crystal thought. It was something new, messier, stronger, alive. And across the galaxy, whispers began spreading. The ancient Dominion had nearly fallen. A human doctor had intervened. Not with superior weapons. Not with advanced technology. But with a dangerous idea. That strength does not come from one perfect leader carrying everyone. It comes from billions choosing to stand. And somewhere beyond mapped space, the Carthawoon Collective recalculated humanity's threat level. Upward. Significantly upward. Because the galaxy had just learned something important. Humans do not just heal bodies. They rewrite destinies. And they are not afraid to break a few eternal rules to do it.